Okay, we do have our quorum, and I was checking to see we do have a number of our elected representatives. So we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening. This is the full board meeting of Community Board 5. I'm Vicki Barbero, the chair. And as usual, we will begin our meeting by hearing from those of our elected officials who are in attendance and who wish to speak. They will be followed by the representatives of other electeds who will report to the board for 2 minutes each. We then go into our public session. This is the opportunity for anyone from the public to bring information to the board. Anyone wishing to speak should sign up by 6:30. Be sure to include the subject that you'll be addressing, as well as any contact information should we need to contact you. And remember, there is a time limitation of 2 minutes. Please respect the time constraints that the board faces during each of its meetings. We then move into the business session, and the business session is when the board it starts with the adoption of the minutes, and then the chair's report, the committee reports, resolutions. We have questions and comment period for the resolutions and the action items that are before us, and then the board votes. So comments or questions from either applicants or the public, or if any additional information is needed, are only allowed with the chair's approval. So I will start this evening calling on, I don't believe we have, I know Gail was going to tune in, but I don't think she's here yet. And so was Brad and Carlina.
Correct, they haven't joined yet.
So we will start with raising your hands, those of you who would like to speak this evening. I see Justin Flagg. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. Justin Flagg from Senator Krueger's office. Just a couple of things. Next week, we're having our virtual senior resource fair. Normally we have this in person. We have for the last 12 years or so. And we have over 500 people come by. This year we're doing it virtually. 3 webinars over 3 days next week. I will drop the registration page and some more info into the chat. A reminder about the census. Please fill out your census forms. The deadline is back to being October 30th. One issue that we have seen, particularly in Senator Krueger's district, is people who have filled out the census for the location where they are sheltering, which may be outside of the city, rather than their permanent residence in the city. So if you've done that, or you know someone who might have done that, who's currently outside of the city because of the pandemic, the League of Women Voters has instructions for how you can fix your census form so that it reflects your actual permanent residence. So I'll dump that in the chat as well. And just quickly about voting. Obviously, our office is getting a lot of questions, voting related, about early voting and absentee ballots in particular. The best source of information for that is the City Board of Elections website, which is actually really good. They've done a great job with it this year. It's vote.nyc. That's vote.nyc. Has a lot of information. One of the biggest questions we're getting now, of course, is if I get an absentee ballot that says absentee military ballot, can I still use it? The answer is yes. This is a very unfortunate typo. There should be a slash between absentee and military, but there's not. All of the ballots say that. So if you have one like that, you can use it. If you can't find an answer to any other questions you have on the website, please give our office a call. We're eager to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. I'm going to go to Lori because she can't raise her hand and I don't want to forget her.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Well, Justin nicely covered voting, so I'll just go to a few quick things for our office. Our second Council District 3 cleanup day was a great success. We had a lot of neighbors pitching in to clean streets and sidewalks. And I'm happy to say I was joined by Renee Kinsella, who helped us clean up around FIT. So thank you, Renee. We're addressing food insecurity by continuing to deliver hundreds of meals to the community on a regular basis. We have a lot of events coming up. We have a donation drive on October 13th. It'll be held in our district office at 224 West 30th Street, Suite 1206. It's for our fellow New Yorkers who are living in shelters or temporary hotel shelters and those without shelter. I can share a list of what the needs are with the board. We also have a virtual Medicare enrollment event. We're joining with Medicare Rights Center hosting a Medicare enrollment enforcement information presentation. That's Wednesday, October 14th. That'll be from 5 to 6. Again, I can send the RSVP link to the board. And finally, we are doing Aid for AIDS. Our office is working with Aid for AIDS. We're gonna have an event at the AIDS Memorial Park. That's at 12th and 6th. That'll be October 28th. And what it is we're asking people, and Aid for AIDS is asking people to donate unexpired and unused medicine that they then share. If you don't know about AIDS for AIDS, they're an amazing organization. They are a nonprofit that provides free HIV medications and critical support to underserved populations throughout the developing world. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Lori. We have been joined by our council member, Carlina Rivera. Haven't seen you. It's nice to see you, Carlina.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? I will try to use my 2 minutes very, very wisely. My colleagues were great and concise, and they covered a lot of things. I guess a couple of things I just wanted to mention that we received some inquiries from, of course, some of you, from some constituents, are on how we're, one, trying to, of course, maintain momentum in terms of the census. I know that some people, they might have left Manhattan for a little while. They still might not be back, but we certainly need them to fill that out. And then, of course, that, and again, I know that Justin and Lori, they covered this, but tomorrow is a very big date for voter registration. And so that's really, really important, just considering how important this election is. For those quality of life concerns that my office has received, a couple points, I guess I'm gonna cover trash first. So in case you did not know, because of the budget, DSNY is doing fewer trash pickups. I know it's very frustrating. It's frustrating you, it's frustrating me. And we have seen a few routes restored in the area. We've identified places that are high needs. I've certainly advocated with the mayor to restore further routes in the district. We can't let the Department of Sanitation off the hook, regardless of budget cuts. For those of you who are maybe aware or aren't, they do need to work with us and partners to make sure that we can continue to provide these critical services. We've been doing some creative thinking ourselves. We've partnered with ACE. ACE is a program that provides job training to people who are experiencing homelessness or who are underhoused, and then employs them to do supplemental sanitation services, cleaning up our streets, while also providing services to those in need. So far I have them on around, I guess, 3rd Avenue, which is close to CB5, but not quite, because I'm partnering very closely with the BIDS, which, as you know, in terms of Flatiron 23rd Street and the Union Square partnership, we work very, very closely together. But between 28th and 34th Street, some of those avenues, we do have supplemental services that I am funding to make sure that we try to keep our streets as clean as possible. If you do see a problem area, like, you know, the bags have been ripped open or the garbage is strewn about, you please call 311, and you could always forward that to us so we can follow up and potentially even get someone sent to that area to do a quick cleanup. The other thing that, you know, we've clearly received a lot of concerns about is about the people experiencing homelessness in our district. We know that unfortunately the pandemic has exacerbated challenges for New Yorkers experiencing homelessness and just our housing crisis in general. I know many of us feel a little bit helpless in order to help people, and this situation might be even affecting you personally. It's just most important that we get New Yorkers to individualize rooms with services, as typically, like, crowded shelters allow for much higher occurrences of super spread COVID events. And so, and also not everyone on the street takes the services that are offered to them by homeless outreach teams. We're working closely with them, whether it's Goddard Riverside or Breaking Ground, BRC, our local precincts, also just organizations that provide services, and of course the community boards. We certainly want to make sure that people feel like we're engaging, we're collaborating, and we're really trying to do our best as we advocate for the creation of more supportive housing with on-site resources, improving mental health and substance abuse treatment services, and of course, what would help is an end to discriminatory criminal justice practices that leave a lot of people homeless. So we're working on that in terms of budgetary and legislative potential, and then always just trying to look out for our small businesses. My office is working to ensure that small business owners have the resources they need to survive the pandemic. You'll see the outdoor dining. I've tried to support as many businesses as I can in the CV5 area. My husband and I have been going out as much as possible on our bikes, enjoying the open streets. Earlier, I guess it was last month, the mayor signed one of my small business bills to help with personal liability provisions, a temporary suspension during this pandemic. And also I fought for the restoration of funding to the Commercial Lease Assistance Program, which is the only city-funded legal assistance program that helps people, especially when, I'm not sure if there was if you all saw it, but there was a great New York Times article on how landlords actually do want to negotiate a new lease to keep tenants in place. And so some people do not have those resources. The CLA program provides that, and it has been especially essential for minority and women-owned businesses and those who might speak English as a second language. So even though I haven't been to City Hall in months, we're still working. My office is open a couple days a week, constantly working on legislation to make sure that we're doing things like restricting overnight and after hours construction, making our city safer for cyclists and pedestrians alike, and of course, holding this administration responsible for the failures in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. I am the chair of the council's Committee on Hospitals. We just did our second testing and tracing hearing. We're trying to make sure that we're culturally responsive, especially because of the uptick in cases, and that's just ongoing. Any questions, please let me know. My office is always open. You could email, some people DM me on social media, or you can call. And I just want to thank you for being so gracious with the time and allowing me to update you on a few things that I'm working on in conjunction with my colleagues, advocates, and of course, all of the wonderful neighbors and community board members on this call.
Thank you, Carlina. A lot of good things in there, and thanks for all you do. We really appreciate it. Our borough president, Gail Brewer. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a few things. First of all, everything is related to real estate, and the fact that you had such a big part of Midtown East or East Midtown. It's very interesting for me on two fronts. First of all, the Wall Street Journal announced today, and so did a release that I got, that JP Morgan Chase commits $30 billion to advance racial equity. So that's very interesting because they were absolutely horrible on giving out PPPs for small businesses. If you remember, they were a challenge. So I don't know, I'm certainly going to contact them, and you might figure out the strategy. They're in your area. They got their new building thanks to you and me and others. And I think we should make sure that as much as possible goes, I'm sure it's a national effort, but I think you should know about it and you should be in contact with them, and we should find out what we can work with them on. I just throw that out because it's a lot of money and it should stay as much as possible in the borough of Manhattan or in the 5 boroughs, but it's your building. I also want to say, I think that One Vanderbilt was also part of Midtown East. I do think that in terms of their pedestrian plaza, which you certainly worked on, and all the work that you did on their public transit hall and the money for Grand Central, it seems to have happened, and you should take, again, great credit for all of that. At the same time, as usual, Board 5 is ahead. Everybody I mentioned the Municipal Art Society's idea of a director of public realm proposal. They don't like anything else I say, but when I get to that, they love it. So I just think you might want to share that with other boards, what you discovered, what you think, because if I have to deal with any more, between the outdoor restaurants, the bus lanes, the bike lanes, the cars, the vehicles, the parking, the accessoride. Oh, and no, we have the drones, of course, and the list goes on. Even art in the streets, that's another challenge. I have many, many requests for last minute, and I try to help them. Art, meaning music, etc. It's very complicated. I don't need to tell you. So all of that, plazas, homeless, oh my God. So I think it's a great idea. I said from the beginning, but you've obviously flushed it out. So I just want to say congratulations. Just like during the pandemic, you came up with ideas. Fabulous. Not directly related, but we do have a listing now from my wonderful interns of the 100 public restrooms. And I have to say, it's a big challenge. As you know, because of the pandemic, every restaurant that had to have an open restroom because they have food is now closed. And it's particularly hard, not just for the homeless, but I have to say in general, it's a hard issue. I hear about it all the time, just to let you know. Kalina, to her credit, mentioned the issue of census. I know we're tired of it, but we have another month. So we've done two things recently. I think I mentioned that we send out with the League of Women Voters to the 35,000 people who had requested absentee ballots. And we got their addresses in Connecticut and the Hamptons and upstate. We mailed it there. The League of Women Voters has gotten a pretty good positive response in the sense that people are calling and say, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to fill it out with my Manhattan address. They're doing that. And we also took out ads in Connecticut and upstate and the island, hopefully getting the message out. In addition, we have been meeting with all of the management companies. Rebney's helping and 32BJ is helping, because Manhattan was about at 93%, not necessarily regarding the self-response, but we were getting up there. There was still like an 8 or 9% that was like impossible for US Census. So Matthew Washington has been pushing as hard as he can and making some headway. The schools, I don't know if it's true in District 2, but generally the devices are a problem. Not in every school. But on the Lower East Side, for instance, District 1, they have short 534 devices. So it's about 10,000 borough-wide. So we're trying between DOE and others to make sure that people get devices without getting into all the specifics. We did give out COVID kits, sanitizer and census and masks at almost all the schools on the election, on the opening day. We had a huge turnout of volunteers. The Manhattan Chamber of Commerce is fabulous, Jessica Walker. And as you probably know, the partnership, meaning Kathy Wild, gave every Chamber of Commerce in the 5 boroughs quite a bit of funding to work with small business. So the Chamber of Commerce in Manhattan has hired 5 people. You may know this, but I just want to be sure you do know. You should reach with them. You have an awful lot of businesses in Board 5. And they are going to be tasked with figuring out funding, lawyers, technology, and anything else that a business needs. So that is an opportunity, I think, that we should not turn down whatsoever. And then just, I want to say finally, I think the big issue is the Queensboro Bridge. It's not directly where you are, but there is a big push to get pedestrian and bicycle safety. And we walked it with the Commissioner of DOT, and we are trying to figure out a way that we get the funding to be able to have pedestrians and cyclists figure out how they can work in both directions. It needs a fence. It's the main issue. And those are some of the topics that we've been working on. And thank you very much, Community Board Number 5.
Thank you, Gail. We have the Director of Public Realm report on tonight, and we're doing this regularly, you know, just for the reason you're saying. We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to get a lot of support for it. I'm going to bring it up again at Borough Board, if that's okay with you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
A couple of other boards have called me asking, you know, what we've done, and I put them in touch with MAS, and I think they're going to be getting the same presentation we did. Super important. So
Yeah. Congratulations.
thank you so much. Okay, next we have our State Senator, Brad Hoylman. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. Nice to see you, Carlina and Gail. Hard to follow those amazing reports, but I follow in their wake proudly because I've commented on social media about your public realm concept. It's a really great one. So congratulations to that. I certainly concur with the borough president on that. I also wanted to, I guess you have a new district manager. So Marisa, congratulations. That's thrilling, and really, really glad to see you. And my colleague, Annabelle DeCastro, is on the line. So I know you'll be in touch with her soon if you haven't already, but I know she looks forward to working with you. And I just wanted to report that on community board budgeting, our plan to kind of replicate what the council has done so successfully with their capital dollars in participatory budgeting. We look to you for input on how to spend your tax dollars at the state level. So we've allocated on your recommendation $125,000 for new auditorium seats at School of the Future, and another $125,000 for laptops and Promethean boards at the Repertory Company High School for the Arts. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that input, and we'll get those approved as soon as we can. And then I wanted to discuss briefly as a second item, the dramatic uptick in complaints about illegal street racing. I know that's been across Midtown, on the West Side, parts of the West Side Highway, and just across Manhattan, really. And in response, I introduced a piece of legislation that we're calling the Fighting Urban Racing in Our Streets Act. Acronym is FURIOUS, which took a very long time to come up with. So I hope you appreciate that effort. And it would authorize New York City to operate its speed camera program both overnight and on weekends in areas that are hot spots for illegal street racing. So I hope we can get that passed when we go back to Albany. I think we'll be going back to Albany before the end of the year to deal with budget issues. And this is something that has generated a lot of support from colleagues all across the city, because street racing is not just limited to Manhattan. And another colleague of mine has a bill that would clamp down on illegal and loud mufflers. So I want him to call that the FAST Act. So we'll have the Fast and Furious Act as a package. That's kind of like my dream acronym scenario. But it's also going to change, the legislation I carry is also going to change New York laws on speed contests to make it easier to hold racers accountable. A third, I don't know if anyone on CB5 or people might be taking the bar exam. But this year, the bar was completely virtual. And as chair of the Judiciary Committee, I took that issue very seriously up in Albany, because law graduates were being faced with having to take a virtual exam. And some of them had faulty internet. Obviously, if you don't have a steady source of income, as many law graduates and students and New Yorkers at this point in time do not have, they may not have internet at all. So you may have to go into a Starbucks or somewhere to try to, somehow get a feed on a hotspot to take the exam. It had a lot of problems. So I've, along with the Assemblywoman from Brooklyn, Joanne Simon, we've launched a survey, which you can find in our board report, to try to assess the issues that bar test takers have experienced, and informs hopefully some future legislation in connection with what we call diploma privilege, which a number of jurisdictions, including Washington, D.C., has passed. Because of the inability for students to take the bar, we believe that you should be able to be admitted to the bar on at least a temporary basis, so you can start earning an income. And frankly, during this COVID-19 period, we need lawyers. We need lawyers to help with small businesses. We need lawyers to help in legal services with tenants who are having problems with their landlords. And we need lawyers to help a lot of folks who have gone to the hospital and received unexpected bills. So there's a public service aspect to this too. So hopefully we can move the issue on that. And of course, as my colleague said, just make sure you register to vote if you haven't already by tomorrow, October 9th. Get your flu shot. It's more important than ever this year. I'm actually participating, speaking of shots, in a COVID-19 vaccine trial at NYU, and I'm still standing, but I do think I definitely got the vaccine and not the placebo, just based on some of the effects that I had the next morning. But hopefully, that kind of effort will get a vaccine, not under this president, but under an FDA and a president that we know will have a safe vaccine for all of us sooner rather than later. Thank you so much, Vicki. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Brad. Thank you again for providing that funding for two very, very important needs that are crucial to education in our community. We got the word, and I was thanking you at the Borough Board meeting. So I thank you again. It's really you're always there for us, and we really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Good to see you. Okay, let's see. I think next in line will be Abigail.
Hi everyone. So I didn't have any updates today, but I actually just wanted to let everyone know that today is my last day working in the council. After
I heard that rumor.
I know.
Oh no.
Yeah, almost 3 years with Councilmember Powers, but as I said to Renee, I couldn't miss one last full board. I wanted to say I'm so glad I got to know all of you and Luke, not to mention Wally, and the elected officials and elected representatives on this call over the last few years. And I just wanted to thank you for everything you do for the community. We had a lot of fun, whether it was a particularly memorable liquor license renewal meeting inside of a hookah bar. Luke will remember that meeting. Or calls with Wally when I began this job where he explained everything going on in the neighborhood. Or the time we all spent full board together on Valentine's Day night. I have learned a lot from all of you, so I just wanted to thank you. And obviously, with reaching out to our office while I'm not there, you can reach out to Kate Theobald in our office, who's the chief of staff, or just email kpowers@council.nyc.gov. So
We are very, very sorry to see you go. We wish you lots of luck. I hope it's something wonderful and why you're leaving us, but we will miss you very much and send you all our best wishes.
Thank you so much, Vicki.
Okay. Next will be Luke Wolf.
Hi, everyone. Luke Wolf from City Controller Scott Stringer's office. I'll start by saying welcome to Marissa, and I look forward to working with you. And Abigail, I wish you the best of luck. I'll start by sharing some of our back to school work. I know that's top of mind for many folks across the city right now. And first, in a minute, I'll drop in our back to school guide in the chat. A lot of great resources in there for families as their kids go back to school in the past few weeks and going forward. It's available in English, Chinese, and Spanish, and a whole lot of resources and links in there that I hope will be helpful. Some of our other work is the controller recently called on the city to make public schools more inclusive for gender non-binary students, including allowing them to identify as they choose in the DOE's online ecosystem of learning, which they currently cannot do, to make sure that they are identified as they choose. We also wrote a letter to the mayor specifically about the homeless student population and asked me to designate a single point person for issues related to the homeless student population, including unreliable internet and making sure that their shelter locations are close to their school so that all potential or any other issues are hopefully alleviated. So hopefully we can get some movement on that because we know that student population has been really impacted during the pandemic. We're also pushing on communications companies like Charter and Altice to once again offer Wi-Fi to all students like they did in the spring. We know that Wi-Fi has been an issue for students during virtual learning, and we hope that they can step up once again and provide that service for students across the city. And to end on two pieces of good news, which I hope we all need right now, the controller has been able to return $2 million to workers across the city throughout the pandemic in unpaid prevailing wages. So we will continue to do that work. We know that every dollar counts. And one other piece of good news is that 34 new S&P 100 companies have committed to releasing their demographic employment data. And that is after the controller pushed for all the companies who made statements about equity back in May and June to actually take an action around that. So we welcome those 34 companies of the S&P 500 to some of this work.
Thank you, Luke. Next, Betsy Schmidt.
Hi, good evening. Congresswoman Maloney returned to New York this week after a couple of very busy weeks in DC. Last week, she presided over 2 major hearings on the Committee on Oversight and Reform with the leaders of pharmaceutical companies. The committee has an ongoing investigation about drug pricing, and they questioned the CEOs about the exorbitant price increases that we've seen for some very vital prescription drugs, for cancer drugs and things like that. Let's see, what else? Oh, last week, the House also passed an updated version of the HEROES Act, which is the coronavirus legislation follow-up to the CARES Act. It would still include another round of economic impact payments. It would reinstate the additional $600 of unemployment assistance and provide money for state and local governments. This new version would also improve the Paycheck Protection Program to serve the smallest businesses and struggling nonprofits, providing hard-hit businesses with second loans and delivering targeted assistance for the struggling restaurant industry and independent live venue operators. That kind of incorporates a few other bills into that. Now, obviously, like 2 days ago, the president said that they were done negotiating. He's also seemingly reversed course. So I wanted to bring it to you, and we'll see how things go with that. But we've passed it and are hoping to make it happen. Also, as everyone else has talked about, the court decision that pushed back reinstated the end of October deadline for the census. So keep filling out your census. And then, of course, as other people have said as well, tomorrow's the last day to register to vote. If you haven't already done so, please do that. And also, since we won't meet again before that, early voting starts on October 24th and will run to November 1st. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Betsy. I think that is, that concludes the representatives of our electeds. I don't see anyone else, and that moves us into the public session. If we could have the names of the, could I have the names of those who are wishing to speak during the public session?
Sure. So I don't currently see anybody's hands raised, but if anybody from the public is interested, you can click the raise hand button at the center of your screen, or if you're joining by a phone, you can press *9.
No one? Okay. All righty, then we are now in our business session of the board. And we will start by, I will start by asking for a motion to approve the minutes of September.
Motion.
And may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a roll call vote. Craig?
Michaelis,
Yes.
Athanail,
Yes.
Behar,
Yes.
Eichmann,
Yes.
Brosnahan,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Chu,
Yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Dosen,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Frewer,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Goldman,
Yes.
Gashow,
Yes.
Haas,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Hartman,
Yes.
Heyer, Heyer, Isaacs,
Yes.
I'm
Kay
sorry,
Back.
I was having trouble coming off of mute. It's a
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Hey,
thank
back,
you.
yes.
Gayback, yes. Kang,
Yes.
Kinsella,
Yes.
Lagasico,
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Usick,
Yes.
McCall,
Yes.
Meyerson,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Raybar,
Yes.
Shapiro,
Yes.
Slutskin, yes. Smith,
Yes.
Spandorf,
Yes.
Spence, Spence, Stern,
Yes.
Sung,
Yes.
Schinkel,
Yes.
Weintraub,
Yes.
Whalen,
Yes.
Yang.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I move into the chair's report, I would like to remind everyone to please put your cameras on. Those of you who have that ability. It's very important. These are virtual meetings and we want to see everybody. So thank you. As you know, last month I shared my enthusiasm and my excitement over the fact that we had selected our new district manager, Marisa Mock. So Marisa became a member of the CB5 family officially on Monday, and she's bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to the position. I know that she has tuned in to many of our virtual meetings over the past month, and maybe even before that. This evening, I am so pleased to introduce her to you all at her first meeting of Community Board 5 as our district manager. So Marisa, welcome to Community Board 5.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Sure.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say a quick hello. I am very excited to be here. I've spoken with a few of you and hope to speak with all of you over the next few weeks. You can always reach me. My email just became active today. So it's Marisa, M-A-R-I-S-A @cb5.org. But I will send out an email to everyone just introducing myself and giving you all my contact information. My virtual door is open. So please reach out. I'm here to support the work that you do and would love to talk to all of you and just hear your hopes and dreams for the board and how this office can be helpful to you. So nice to see everybody and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thanks, Marisa, and we're very happy you're with us. Okay, let us move now into our committee reports, starting with land use, housing, and zoning. Layla.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This month we had one application and we had also one presentation. We're going to start with the application. This is an application by the Court Theater located on West 48th Street, as well as Clarity Hotel. And it was a rather technical and complicated issue. So I'm going to try to simplify it and explain it as clearly as possible, but bear with me. So the Court Theater is a listed theater, meaning that it is among the theaters that have been listed in the zoning resolution of the City of New York as being part of important and significant theaters in the theater subdistrict. As such, the zoning resolution has a provision that if such theater receives a substantial improvement, then they are eligible, like the lot where the theater is located is eligible for a FAR bonus. FAR stands for floor area ratio, and basically it is density. So if improvements are done to the Court Theater and these improvements are deemed substantial, then the lot is eligible for a density upgrade. So the Court Theater appeared in front of our committee and showed us the substantial improvements that they want to make. Basically, they are reinventing the interiors of the Court Theater with upgraded air conditioning, much improved accessibility, really much improved. building new bathroom facilities in a substantial way. And because they are very fortunate that the lot that is adjacent to the Court Theater is actually vacant, it's a little sliver of 35 feet wide, they are proposing to build an annex that will connect to the Court Theater, in which they're going to be able to create a rehearsal space, patron bars on 2 floors, as well as ancillary space for the production, where they can put the costumes and the theater sets and whatnot. So, and I should mention that on top of all of that, as you can imagine, the Court Theater is a New York City landmark. It is both a exterior and interior landmark, absolutely beautiful theater. And they are proposing a exquisite restoration. So the restoration itself was actually reviewed by the Landmarks Committee in 2018, and the Landmarks Committee of CB5, as well as the full board, voted to support the restoration. We felt way back and still today that it is really exquisite, very good quality, really sparing no expense in order to bring the theater to where it should be as a fully functional 21st century theater, while keeping the history and the quality of this historic space. So the committee felt that the extent of the improvements was substantial. Now this is where it gets a little more complicated. On top of that, the theater and a hotel with which they partnered introduced a zoning text amendment. A zoning text amendment basically means that they want to change the language of the text that is applicable to their situation. Currently, the zoning text says that if a zoning lot is split between 2 zoning districts, then the density has to apply strictly on one side of the boundary and on the other side of the boundary, but they cannot merge. So if you're allowed to build a toll density building on one side of the zoning lot, this is where the density has to be. And if on the other side of the zoning boundary, it is a lower density, then you have to build a lower density building. Basically, they want to use some of this high density that is generated by this bonus on the other side of the border, which the zoning resolution typically disapproves. So we had a lengthy discussion, first of all, to understand how the density was generated. And I'm not going to get into the details of that. Trust the committee on this one. We spent a lot of time and brain juices to figure that out. But basically, the more philosophical question to us was, how do we justify shifting this higher density from one side of the split to the other? And basically, we felt that the nature of the improvements is of really, really high quality and high breadth. It's really very substantial. And B, the theater as a cultural institution has suffered so direly because of the COVID pandemic that they really need to generate this revenue that they will generate by the sale of this density that will finance the improvements. So what basically the committee voted on is a resolution to support the application, with the condition that it is made slightly more restrictive, meaning that this zoning tax amendment would only apply, can only apply to this particular site and this particular lot, that it does not apply anywhere else in the theater sub-district or anywhere else in the city. And the language also really, of our resolution, also really emphasizes the fact that We are making an exception. It is not a precedent. It cannot be used as a precedent. It cannot be seen as a precedent. We have seen enough merits to grant this exception, but nonetheless, it is an exception and it cannot become the rule. So we really struggle to reach this point, and this is why the language of the resolution, although it is in support, is very restrictive. It is only because the court theater has been able to present enough facts to convince us that we can make this exception that we are supporting their application. And so it is a conditional approval, and it was a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Leila. The committee did a phenomenal job on this. Just really very, very, very.
We felt our brains in our skulls that night.
So did I, just listening. Okay, does anyone have a conflict with this application? Are there any questions? Are there any comments? All right, seeing.
I want to very quickly add one thing that came up during the meeting. I think it's important for the record. The hotel that is going to receive this additional density is a hotel that we know is operated by a hotel group that typically does not use union labor, and our resolution calls for this hotel to actually use labor union as part of our conditions. I just wanted to also clarify that.
Okay, thanks, Leila. All right, seeing none, we will take this to a vote.
We have a, sorry to interrupt, we do have a comment.
Oh, Jonathan, I see. Jonathan, did you raise your hand?
Joseph.
No, Joseph. Is it too late for a question?
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, did anyone from the community come out and support or opposition to this special permit?
Yes, so I should thank you for asking that question. We received dozens of letters of support from various entities, both preservation groups, Broadway organizations and theater organizations. One union, 32BJ, actually sent a letter of support. A lot of support. The only opposition that we heard was from the Hotel Trades Council because of the use of non-union labor by this hotel operator. But otherwise, really very, very broad and wide support for this proposal.
I think we got about 10 or 15 more today, didn't we, Leila?
I believe so. I've sort of lost count. I think that at the time we put the resolution together last night, we were at 12 and we received another 1 or 2 today. So very broad and from a wide range of groups and organizations.
Right. Okay. Can we move into voting on this? And I think that the fact that everyone trusts this committee so implicitly says a lot. I mean, especially since I was able to see what went down at that meeting, and it was so thorough and so well thought out and thought through. Thank you so much. We will take this to a vote.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay.
Kalis.
Yes.
Athanel.
Yes.
Behar.
Yes.
Weichman.
Yes.
Rosnahan.
Yes.
Burton.
Yes.
Chu. Gale.
Yes.
Dosen.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Frewer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Goldman.
Yes.
Gashow.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Heyer.
Yes.
Isaacs.
Yes.
Johnson. Kabak.
Yes.
Tang.
Yes.
Kinsella.
Yes.
Lagasico.
Yes.
Levy,
Yes.
Lusick,
Yes.
McCall,
Yes.
Meyerson,
Yes.
Miller.
Abstain.
Abstain?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Raybar,
Yes.
Shapiro,
Yes.
Lutzkin, yes. Smith,
Yes.
Spandorf,
Yes.
Spence,
Yes.
Stern,
Yes.
Sung,
Yes.
Schinkel,
Yes.
Weintraub,
Yes.
Whalen,
Yes.
Yang. Yang. Okay, just check. Julie Chu, did you vote? Are you back?
I don't think she is on right now.
Okay, then motion passes without them.
Okay. It passes. Thank you, Leila. On to your report.
We had a great presentation from the Municipal Arts Society on the post of Director of the Public Realm. You heard about it last month. Clayton actually invited MAS to give them a presentation at the Parks and Public Spaces Committee. But we felt that land use obviously was also a very connected issue that, you know, in part would fall under the eye of, you know, such Director of Public Realm. So I'm going to let Clayton, who's also a member of the Land Use Committee, give a quick update on what MAS had to tell us and what the process is going to be as far as our role advocating for such position. Clayton.
Thank you so much. Yes, so you might all recall that last meeting cycle, I reported that New Yorkers for Parks and Municipal Arts Society, who together have issued this proposal, came to Parks and Public Spaces and outlined the ways in which this proposed position could help New York City. The aftermath of that presentation was that the only real commensurate way that Community Board 5 could support and advocate for what we believe to be an excellent initial idea as it continues to be developed was to actually return to other committees as well, since there are so many elements of this that apply to so many different committees. So one reason for that is because once we do that, we can submit all of our input and questions and priorities to Renee Kinsella and the BEX committee. And the idea is moving forward that at next month's BEX meeting, which begins our formal budget request process and district need statement, again, this can be part of that conversation and part of that advocacy formally, which we quickly got up to speed is the most effective, immediate, and concrete way that we can actually help. Initially, it was going to be a letter from the Parks Committee. And look, I love letters and I love my committee, but when it comes to something as big of an idea as this, we really want to take an action that is commensurate with the nature of the proposal. So, and I have to say that it kind of reveals how important this position is, that the only proper way Community Board 5 can hear it is for it to be heard by multiple committees. That just shows you that the public realm in our city, in our district, and in our city is so disregarded as an actual concept that it's divvied up between city agencies to such a degree that it just divvied up for us because we respond to city agencies. So all that to say, you had the report last month from Parks. This month at Land Use, there's some specific ways that this proposed position really applies to land use concerns. One of them is POPs, privately owned public spaces. Those are under the jurisdiction of the Department of City Planning. So formally and legally, it is a zoning issue. POPs stuff is zoning stuff. And it's maddening because if a cafe, an outdoor cafe is going to be in a POPs, you'd think that Parks would hear that because we hear sidewalk cafes, but no. So this is part of the problem. And it's one of the things that is one of the reasons why we're excited to advocate for this. So that's one element. And then the other one that I'll highlight, which is an enormous one, is the proposal from MAS as part of this position to revisit the seeker manual, which, I mean, I really would have to throw it back to Layla to, I don't know, hesitate to use the word zoning application Bible, but it's the manual that lays out all the required EIS statement findings and data that have to be provided as part of the ULURP process. Shadow impact is something that's been super important to our committee and to our board and to people in our district and to the city, of course. And one of the things that this Director of Public Realm would be ostensibly seeking to advocate for revising and studying and changing is strengthening the seeker manual so that the shadow impacts of development in our city make more sense. Right now, shadow impact does not have to be considered or studied or any data provided in the actual new creation of open space in a proposed development. It is required for existing open space, and that's something, but what is required is insufficient. And nothing is required in any new open space that would be created. And it's like, somebody tell me what sense that makes. So there are this and many other things need to be revised in the seeker manual, and that is one other huge thing that land use would want to hear. So those are the main bullet points, and we will submit those to BEX. And I believe that the next step is for MAS to do the same treatment at Transportation and Environment Committee. And after that, it will be part of the budget request cycle for BEX, and we're excited to move forward.
Great. Thanks, Clayton. Layla, do you have anything more that you want to add?
Not really. I think Clayton gave a very thorough update on what happened at our land use committee meeting. I think that the budget route for a meaningful advocacy that has teeth is really the way to go. So we really look forward to working with the BEX committee. We will, issue some sort of sense of why it matters to the land use committee, and I'm sure that the Parks Committee and the T&E Committee will do the same. I really hope that the other community boards in Manhattan will join this effort because it is really much needed, and hopefully it will lead to a good outcome where the public realm is finally taken into account as such, not as a afterthought from other city agencies.
Well, it's getting a lot of traction. We heard Gail mention it tonight, which is great. And as I mentioned earlier, every board is now interested. So we're going to try to spearhead this and get everybody on board. And I think the best thing what we should recommend is that everyone put this into their budget requests. I mean, the way we are. I don't think they've thought of that. And I'm hoping I think it's the best route to go, as Clayton mentioned.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. That moves us to Parks. We're back with Clayton.
All right, I just have a really quick update. We had no action items this month, but we did have presentations and updates from the Flatiron bid, from the Madison Square Park Conservancy, and from Bryant Park Corporation. And it was really great to see them and to hear from them, and really compelling and interesting and even moving to hear the struggles of these organizations to manage these critical public spaces right now at a time when they're so needed. So I just wanted to add and update the full board with some of the things we learned. First of all, the Flatiron bid always does a competitive search for an artist to do the public art installation in the pedestrian plazas at the Flatiron for the winter months. And this year, the results of that competition were announced. And so they shared it with us. It's really compelling and exciting and dovetails with a lot of the challenges and concerns and all the things that we in the district are going through right now in public space. And so I encourage you to check it out. Their website is flatirondistrict.nyc, and there are renderings of the artwork and some information there. So I just wanted to highlight that. Madison Square Park Conservancy came as well with a very robust update about what they're up to. Needless to say, all of their programming has been canceled for this year, which is tough for so many reasons, but it's the only responsible thing to do. That said, there were some updates I wanted to highlight. The lawns, if you have not walked by and seen or visited yourself, the lawns have been and will continue to be open every single day, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And that is unusual because usually they have a whole horticultural program to protect the grass and protect the lawns. And so they rotate which lawn is closed and open, blah, blah, blah. And this year, as Robin Lockwood said, representing the Conservancy, they really love their lawns and they really love the grass, but this year there are different priorities. So the lawns have had a little bit of wear and tear beyond what happens most years, but they are open, every lawn is open every day from 10 to 9. The programs have been canceled, but there is one important and popular one, which was Leaf Day for kids. There's two things that happen here. Kids can jump into leaves, but also they then rake them. So families come and rake, which is a volunteer, an end of season volunteer opportunity for kids and families. And so there's gonna be, I think they said 2 different days for that. I don't think those days have been decided yet, but if you go to their website, I think that'll be there. And then they have launched a lot of online programming that people might wanna avail themselves of. There's revisiting priorities of art history when it comes to public art installation and all kinds of interesting stuff. So all that information is on their website. I feel like the other thing I wanted to mention is that with the lawns being open, they've painted 6-foot circles, temporary treatment in the lawns so that everyone can feel comfortable that they are within the bounds of social distancing and safety. And then finally from Bryant Park Corporation, 2 main things. Number 1, Winter Village is on. They have reduced the number of vendor booths by 70%. And so this enables them to have a layout that will have responsible socially distant queuing, etc. The demand by vendors has changed for many obvious reasons, but one result of that is that the vendors who will be there are all hyper local. And we've always advocated for the vendors at all of our holiday markets in our district and certainly in our parks to be as local as possible. And at this point, everybody does a pretty good job of that in our district. But this year, I find it interesting that just because of natural reasons, the ratio is much different. So if you are interested in checking that out. And also the ice skating is on. So it's still, like it always has been, free. If you have your own skates, they do charge for skate rental. The main difference is the layout, because there are no tents, there's nowhere to gather indoors at all, and there are no walk-up entries allowed. It is online reservations only, so that they will force the reduced capacity and limit the number of people who enter the rink. So those are my updates. That's all we have.
Okay. Thank you, Clayton. That brings us to landmarks and back to Layla.
All right, so we had one application for landmarks. It is for a very significant building, 175 Fifth Avenue, which is the Flatiron Building. Big, sort of like restoration and upgrade. Basically 4 parts to the application that was in front of us. The applicant wants to redo both entrances, both the one on Fifth Avenue and the entrance on Broadway. These entrances are not historic. They were actually replaced in the 60s in a fashion that was really not sympathetic to the building, with those revolving doors. The applicant is proposing a door configuration and entrance configuration that is much closer to the historic building. We felt that it was an improvement. Second part, the applicant is proposing to do some alterations that are actually under a master plan for the storefronts. Basically, they want the flexibility to basically provide different type of storefronts based on the needs of a tenant or multiple tenants. We felt that they're proposing to use existing materials when they're replacing existing historic materials. They're proposing to use in-kind materials, same type of metal and hardware. If they remove any historic material, they're making the commitment to store all the historic parts so that they can be reused either elsewhere in the building at that very moment or at a later time. Overall, we felt that the master plan was well executed, tasteful, and contextual with the building. Third part of the application, they are proposing to do some work on the 21st floor of the building, which is a penthouse level. So it's an existing penthouse level. They're not proposing a rooftop addition. It already exists. And they're proposing to enlarge the existing windows, do some replacement to some doors that lead onto a small wraparound terrace. And they're proposing to extend the height of the penthouse by 1 foot. Overall, we felt that due to the really minimal visibility of the addition, it was contextual, appropriate. The materials that they're using are historic and contextual. We felt that it was a good step. They're also proposing to install a glass railing that is behind the balustrade, as this little wraparound terrace would become usable. And once again, it's not going to be visible, and we felt it was appropriate. The fourth part to this application is actually a rooftop reorganization of the mechanical equipment. The most significant one is that they're installing 3 HVAC compressors. They're actually fairly small, and they will be non-visible from the street. The great news as part of this development is that they are removing over 600 AC units from the windows. So that is going to clean up the facade in a really substantial way. We thought it was really terrific. Overall, the building will benefit from having central AC. We really feel it is important that those beautiful historic landmarks remain functional and are 21st century buildings. This building is of course amazing, historic, but we want this building to be also functional. The applicant is able to do that in a very mindful and tasteful way, and we voted unanimously to support.
Okay, thank you, Layla. Did the applicant respond at all to the provision that was requested?
There were no provisions here.
Okay, there was no.
No, there was no conditions. We voted to approve. It was a straight approval.
Okay. What am I reading then? I'm sorry, let me just look at something. At the end in the resolve, it says, providing the applicant commits to reuse historic materials. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, and they said that they were fine with it.
Okay.
That was part of their presentation. We're writing it this way so that the Landmarks Preservation Commission understands that this is important to the community board, but the applicant gave us the commitment that they were fine with that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. Are there any? Does anyone have any conflict with this application? Are there any questions to the resolution? Are there any comments?
It looks like David Kalis has his
hand. David?
Yeah, Layla, I was just wondering, the alterations to the terrace on the 21st floor says it's going to make it usable. Who is it going to be usable for?
They were not totally clear or committal on that. It really depends on who the tenant what the tenancy of the entire building is going to be. So it could be, used by the tenant of this particular space, or it could become a community space for users of the building. But it will be, it remains a commercial building. There's no plan to convert the use of the building at this time, and it will be used by some tenants of the building, whether it is dedicated use by the tenants of this particular space or offered as an amenity for other tenants in the building.
Okay, any other questions? Let me just go through. Seeing none, are there any comments? Okay, we will then take this
Yeah,
to a.
I think there's a comment, Vicky.
Where's that?
July.
Oh, it's not, oh, there it is up there. Okay, July. July?
July, for some reason your audio isn't working. If you can reconnect, maybe?
What about now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. I actually had a question, if Vicky, you will allow that.
Go ahead.
And the question is, Leila, I'm curious, since the building is landmarked, I'm not sure since when it has been landmarked, how did the window units get on there to begin with?
The windows, you mean the doors? Which windows are you referring to? July, I don't know if you can hear me, but my question to you is, which windows are you referring to?
July, if you turn your camera off, it might help some of the refresh rate. Still doesn't work. Do you want to try the chat, July? If that's an option? Okay.
So one general, I think July is referring to the doors. As I mentioned, they're not historic. The doors were actually replaced before the building was landmarked, which is why you have non-historic and not very pretty entrance system to the building. As far as the windows are concerned, there was actually a window replacement program in the early 2000s that was done obviously after the building was landmarked. It was approved by LPC at the time, and it is not under the purview of this current application.
Right. Did you see in the chat, she wrote a question about the window units, window AC units.
Air conditioning.
Right.
Okay, any other comments?
Okay, so July is asking in the chat how the window AC units get there. The AC units got there before the building was landmarked. But the window, the air conditioning units sit within the window. They're not part of the window. So there's no alteration to the windows with the removal of those AC units.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments?
Yep, me, Vicky.
Where?
Yeah, so I just had one quick question. What's the time frame for all this replacement for this 4-step process? Are they going to commence immediately after approval? Will it take a year, 2 years, 3 years?
We actually didn't really get into the details of that. Typically, applicants, often come to us and seek the approval so that, that there's a sort of like framework that they can work with. And the work can really depend on a variety of factors. Typically, like they will wait until they have a tenant to actually do the work so that, the lease package comes with the commitment of those alterations. Typically, this is what happens when you have a storefront and a retail space. The work will happen as tenants change. So it's not like, we come, we get the permit, we do the work, and then this is it. It is basically a permit that is in place so that when the opportunity presents itself, the work will be performed.
Any other questions? Any comments? Please use the raised hand because the sheet that I'm seeing blocks some of the, some members, and I can't see if you are actually raising your hand. So use the raised hand feature, please. I don't see any. So we will take this to a vote. Craig?
Thank you. Yang is a yes. She sent me a note. Whalen?
Yes.
Weintraub?
Yes.
Schinkel? Simon, you're on mute. That's a yes. Thumbs up is a yes. Sung?
Yes.
Stern?
Yes.
Spence?
Yes.
Spandorf?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Slutskin, yes. Shapiro?
Yes.
Raybar?
Yes.
Pawson?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Meyerson?
Yes.
McCall?
Yes.
Lusick?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Lagasico?
Yes.
Kinsella?
Yes.
Hang?
Yes.
Kback? Kback? Johnson?
Yes.
Isaacs? Isaacs?
Yes.
Heyer?
Yes.
Hartman?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Haas?
Answer here, Zeke? Yes. What is that?
Gashow?
Yes.
Goldman?
Yes.
Garcia?
Yes.
Frewer? Frewer? Ford?
Yes.
Dosen?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Brosnahan?
Yes.
Eichmann?
Yes.
Behar?
Yes.
Athanel?
Yes.
Akalis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. That moves us to public safety, quality of life, and an update from Nick.
Thanks, Vicki. The only update I have for the board from PSQL is that we continue to monitor open street dining. Our district seems to be very, very unproblematic. We field very, very few complaints. And in fact, we were surprised when the governor shut down one of the operations in our district, Biche Cucina at 1650 6th Avenue, because we hadn't received any complaints about that, but the governor did find violations of social distancing, so they shut them down. So we're pleased with the responsiveness, and I think we're confident that if we do have any issues, that they will be taken care of swiftly and quickly.
Great. That's good news. Okay, thank you, Nick.
Sure.
Moving on now to our last committee report from Bex. Renee.
Thank you, Vicki. We have had two resolutions. May I deem them read?
Yes.
Great, thank you. The first resolution was in support of a package of bills that was introduced by the City Council's General Welfare Committee. There was a hearing on these bills on September 15th. And so for those that aren't aware, the Committee on General Welfare is a group that has jurisdiction over New York City's Administration for Children's Services, Department of Homeless Services, Department of Social Services, Human Resources Administration, and other charitable institutions that do business with the city. So this package of 5 bills was introduced to help address some of the issues around homelessness, which we know is a tremendous issue in our district, to address some of the problems that have arisen with regard to the use of rental assistance vouchers, the amount of those rental vouchers, education about what is available to people who need these services, and also a bill that addresses how to overcome the bar that a criminal background may have to obtain housing. So I'll just run through the 5 bills very briefly. Intro 146 would allow people who are receiving the City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement rental assistance vouchers to continue to receive them as long as the household meets any other eligibility requirements. This is used as a really important tool. It helps families and individuals to avoid an exit shelter. And it's the outcome of a consolidation of several different programs, some of which had a cap. So that's why they can continue to receive them as long as the household meets any other eligibility requirements under this bill. So the bill would take away that limit and would also increase the value of the voucher annually at the same fair market rent as set by the U.S. Department of Housing, Preservation and Development. This was really needed because the maximum rent under FHEPS is really low and not tied to fair market rent like Section 8 is. So to give you an example, maximum rent under this voucher is $1,580 per month. It's about $400 less than the 1951. That's fair market rent.
I'm not done yet, believe it.
In fiscal 2020 for a 2-bedroom. So it really limits the supply of housing that can be available to a voucher holder. So increasing the amount of the vouchers is going to open up, according to research, about 68,000 2-bedroom apartments that would otherwise be unaffordable for someone holding this voucher. The next bill, Intro 1020, would require that the Department of Homeless Services and the Human Resources Administration track and report data regarding rental assistance programs. So what this really means is that there will be quarterly reports issued regarding the rental assistance programs, which will include things like the number of households in the program, who receives public assistance, those that have employment income, what the median income is, the average and median monthly rents of these families and individuals, information about those who were able to exit the program, really just data. And I think our committee is on record as always looking for data, so we thought this was really good. Intro 1339 would require DSS to send out a letter or notify people that are potentially eligible for renter assistance programs administered by DSS so that they can recognize their rights when using or attempting to use this kind of assistance. The next bill, Intro 2018, it's going to require domestic violence services to be available in all shelters. Domestic violence is really the most frequently cited reason for entry into a shelter, and placement into a specialized domestic violence shelter is really subject to eligibility and availability. So these services are going to be available in all shelters now to domestic violence survivors. The final bill, 2047, addresses the issues that people with criminal history have experienced when they try to rent a home. 1 in 3 people here in the US has a criminal record. And so when you have that, when criminal background checks are required as part of the tenant application process, you can imagine there's some real difficulty in finding a rental apartment. And the formerly incarcerated are 10 times more likely to become homeless after they're released from jail or prison as those without a criminal record. So this bill would stop real estate brokers, the landlords, employees, agents from making any criminal history inquiries into a housing applicant's background or taking adverse action due to the criminal history. This resolution passed unanimously by the committee, the support of this package of 5 bills.
Okay. Does anyone have any conflict with this resolution? Are there any questions to the resolution? Are there any, whoops, Clayton?
Thanks. I just have a quick question about Intro 2047. I totally support the committee's work, and I think I agree on principle with all of these bills. I just have a curiosity about prohibiting real estate brokers from making inquiries or taking an adverse action. What exactly is the prohibition? Are they not allowed to make what is stopping them from doing it? Or is it simply that they shouldn't do it, and if somebody finds out and holds them accountable, they get in trouble?
They're going to get in trouble. There's going to be accountability. There's already a local law about lawful sources of income in New York City human rights law. So as a protected class for people using these vouchers, it makes it illegal to refuse to rent an apartment because someone has housing assistance vouchers, right? And so this would include now making this, having a criminal, having that criminal background check required as part of the tenant application process, and rejecting them as taking adverse action due to the criminal history, right? So it's sort of like a protected class.
And if I may, is the idea that then Intro 1339 would supply the applicants with the information that they need to know what their rights are in regard to all the other?
Absolutely. So 1339 is a corollary to that, not just about the criminal background history, but it would give information, it would provide information to people about their protections under the New York City human rights law. So some of the things the letter will tell people is that it's illegal for landlords and brokers to refuse to accept rental assistance for payment of rent or security deposits. And they can't ask for additional payments for rent on security deposits or broker fees because that person has rental assistance. And it's going to highlight some of the language that brokers and landlords might use that sort of indicate there's discrimination based on the source of income.
And then finally, I assume that those materials will also include some simple, direct information about who to contact and what support they could have if they find themselves in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Clayton. Thank you, Renee. That's incredible, right at your fingertips. I love it. Any other questions? I don't think I see any. Are there any comments? Do you want to bundle or?
Yes, may I bundle? I'm sorry.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, go to the next one then.
Sure. The second.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Joseph Frewer raised his hand. I don't know if it's too late.
I'm sorry. Just a quick typo. As a matter of procedure, should I just follow up with Renee about that after the meeting?
Yeah, if it's a typo, yes. If it's, if it's not something.
It's not a substantive change.
Right, okay.
Thanks, sorry.
Okay, sure, it's okay. Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, so the second reso it concerns support for small business. It's a state bill. It's a bill introduced by Senator Hoylman and Senator Epstein. It's a solution to the issue of small businesses and nonprofits who have difficulty making rent. There's a large number of small businesses and nonprofits throughout our district. They're gone out of business, they're going out of business. So this bill was presented to us as a framework that could help address what's believed to be a coming avalanche of commercial evictions and closures due to rent. So the bill is premised on a balanced approach of shared sacrifice between the small business, the landlord, and the government. It's not just saying no rent is to be paid, but instead it sort of splits the baby between all three. Lost income due to COVID would be responsible for a modest percentage. So what would happen, the way it goes is like this. The person who's renting, the small business or nonprofit, would be required to pay either the lesser of 20% of their monthly income or 1/3 of their contractual rent, whatever's less. And then the landlord would be required to waive 20% of the monthly contractual rent. And then the government would step into that gap between the two. I'm going to explain it to you how it was explained to us. Imagine if the rent were $100, right? That's what the rent was agreed upon. The tenant can show that there's been a loss of business, so their rent would go down to 1/3 of the contractual rent. So that's $33. And then the landlord would have to waive 20% of the contractual rent, which is $20. So now there's $47 in the middle. And that would be covered. This bill would create a commercial rent relief fund that would be established by the bill of $500 million earmarked from any federal assistance that comes to New York State. The landlord would then apply to be reimbursed. The tenant would say, look, here, I've lost all this money. I'm going to show you my books. I've lost money due to COVID. Landlord would then have to apply to be reimbursed for that middle portion that they would not otherwise receive. Everyone gets a little bit, everyone gives a little bit. And it's just really to prohibit the death spiral of some of these small businesses. Of course, the linchpin to this bill is the state receiving federal funding. Is that going to happen? Who knows? Really doesn't work without it. The funds could come from elsewhere, they definitely could, but it's really premised on it coming from federal funding. Small businesses have rallied around this, and other community boards have supported it. In this bill, small businesses are defined as 25 or fewer employees and nonprofits. And the way it works, the business has to just demonstrate they're affected. Business would need to demonstrate the lost revenue on a month-to-month basis. It goes on a month-to-month basis. And the only way to ensure that businesses who get this are the ones that need it is by showing this demonstration of lost business. They would get the reduction immediately as long as they qualify, and then the landlords would be the people who have to apply for the reimbursement. The onus is really on the landlord. We were told it's hard to gauge how many businesses are going to be affected, but we were told that up to 70,000 small businesses could end up closing without some form of assistance. So 500 million isn't going to take care of the need indefinitely, but it was estimated that it would take care of a few months. And the kid maybe understood if the tenant's income was zero, then potentially his portion of the rent would be zero. The committee discussed and was concerned that defining small businesses as being 25 or fewer full-time employees really is too small a universe, and we would like to see this increased to perhaps 50 or 75 full-time people. We talked about a lot of restaurants that may have this number of people and still be considered a small business. We were told that this is possible to consider. This bill is still in the early iteration. We were also concerned that the landlords hadn't been part of the conversation in creating this bill, and we'd like to see them involved as the bill progresses. And the committee was also anxious to ensure that some mechanism is built in to prevent money from going to landlords who are charging enormous rents, because the goal of the bill is to support small businesses, not enrich landlords, right? Given all those caveats and recognizing that this is dependent on federal funding or funding from somewhere, the committee supported the bill 14-1. We realize that this bill will change, and it's really very much a framework and a plan for going forward with small businesses. So it was approved 14-1.
Okay. Does anyone have a conflict with this resolution? Are there any questions to the resolution?
You have a question?
Okay, I see. We have, I had two there. Wait a minute. Where did they go? First one would be Matthew, and then Joel, and then Nancy.
I think on this one, it sounded like there was an opposing vote, so I'd just love to hear what the logic was.
My understanding of the opposing vote, I would say, I don't want to put words in the person's mouth, but it was concern about the landlords not being part of the coalition in discussing this, that it really favored the small businesses. You know, the small businesses, there was a coalition and it's gathering steam and support from small businesses, and there really wasn't a voice of the landlords in this. Having said that, we understand that this bill sort of splits the baby, as I said, and sort of spreads the pain a little bit between the landlord and the tenant and the government, rather than just saying we're going to suspend rent.
Okay, Joel?
Hi, I had a couple of questions. First, I didn't understand the math, how you got from $100, where you say that if the tenant pays a third, it goes down to 33, and then the landlord absorbs 20%, and that somehow got you to 47?
Sure. So imagine this. So the rent's $100, and now that's what the tenant should pay to the landlord. But we're going to say now he lost all this business. He's only now going to be responsible for 1/3 of what he owes. So that's $33, right?
Right.
And now the landlord has to waive 20% of the rent as well. So that's $20. So now you're down to $43, right?
Oh, so I'm sorry, the 33 is what it's reduced by or what it's reduced to?
No, it's going to be reduced by $33. That $100 would be reduced by 33.
So it's 67.
Yes.
Okay. That's what it says in the resolution, but the statute actually says it's reduced to $33. Or at least the current draft of the statute.
The current draft says it's reduced to $33, not 1/3.
It says it's reduced to one third of the rent.
We understood that as it was presented to us, it was either the lesser of 20% of the monthly income or 1/3 of the contractual rent.
That's correct. It's reduced to 1/3 of the rent, or if less, whichever is less, 20% of the actual income.
Right. Yes.
So $100 rent is reduced to $33 and then further reduced by 20%, which means it's reduced to $13.
No. So I'm using the 1/3 as opposed to the 20%. So the tenant is going to show how much they have lost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can either, their reduction is going to be the lesser of 20% of monthly income or 1/3 the contractual rental agreement. So if this, imagine they did no business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So their monthly income is 0.
Right.
Their contribution to rent will be 0.
Okay.
The landlord in that case, imagine the rent then in that case is still $100. The renter is going to pay 0, right? Because he had 0 income. The landlord is going to reduce the rent by 20%, $20. So now there's $80 left that isn't being paid, right? $80 left in that gap between the renter and the landlord. That is the amount that the landlord is going to apply to this fund to receive, that $80. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense as you explain it, and it kind of makes sense with the resolution. It does not make sense with the statute on the Senate website. It does not say that.
Okay.
But if that's what's intended, that's clearly not what it says.
This is how, I'm not sure how that's different. I will say this, I will look at that language. This is the language I looked at, and this is how it was presented to us by Senator Hoylman's office. So I will look at this again, but this is how we understand that the bill. Could you please explain to me what language is different?
Sure. If you look at in 8865, the draft on Hoylman's on the Senate website from July 31st, which is the only current version they have out there, Section 2A, I, says, notwithstanding any other provision, any covered tenant, which is either the 25 employees or the not-for-profit with 25 employees, any current tenant that's substantially lost income shall be responsible, on line 12, shall be responsible for rent payments up to 20% of the covered tenant's actual income for the 30 days prior, or 1/3 of their contractual rent, whichever is less.
Right.
They'll be responsible for 1/3 of the contractual rent. So they're responsible for $33.
Or
20% of their income.
right.
Right. So say their income
But
is
if their income is 0, it would be 0.
right. But if their income is, say their income is $50, so they're responsible for, or $100 to make it easy. Their income's $100. They're responsible for 20% of that. That's $20.
Correct.
Okay, so they're responsible for $20. And then it says the landlord shall waive. So that's what I was saying. They were only responsible for $20 or $33. It's not reduced by $33. It's reduced to $33.
I think we're saying the same thing. Yes.
Okay.
I think we're saying exactly the same thing. I think we're getting caught up in semantics a little bit.
In line 205 of the reso,
Mhm.
rent reduction would be set at the lesser of 20%. It actually says the rent would be set at the lesser of 20% or 1/3.
Okay, so
That's
I can change that language.
maybe that's it.
in the
Maybe that's
amendment, but we're essentially that becomes the same thing, right? The rent becomes that lesser amount to the tenant.
That's what I was asking. I mean,
Yes, to the tenants. Yes.
that's correct. Okay, that's what I was asking because that's
Yes.
not what the resident said. I had a second question, that just very different. The many landlords and tenants, and I represent a lot of landlords and tenants in my work, and I've spent most of the last 7 months negotiating agreements where landlords are lowering rents, they're deferring rents, they're working out payment structures, they're restructuring leases from scratch. Are these deferrals, are these abatements, and is this statute going to apply to the new numbers that have been negotiated post-COVID, where the landlords have already made certain concessions, or are they going to be applied to the original numbers before the landlords made these interim concessions?
So this bill is still in, is not in its final iteration.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I could not answer. I would imagine, so the bill is planned for the pandemic, right? So our understanding is that this bill would only apply for 100 days past the state of emergency. I assume whatever is in effect, although I don't want to speak to that because this bill is going to be iterated and we understand that. I would imagine it would apply to whatever currently is in effect. And whether that's been renegotiated or not, but I really don't want to say yes or no to that because I don't know.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, you're okay with that, Joel?
Okay with what
with what the two of you came out with, because
I think if my concern was that the reso and the statute didn't say the same thing.
Yeah.
If you take out the word reduction in that whereas the rent reduction, then at least they say the same thing. Am I okay with the substance of it?
But do you think we need to check
We're in questions
with Harleman's office?
I think it maybe at the end of the day, yeah. But I think if you take out the word reso and what you're describing, we're now talking about the same thing. That's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, Renee, I'll leave that up to you to however you want to handle it tomorrow if you want to do some further checking. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Joel. Okay, where were we? We were on questions and we were up to Nancy.
Okay, so it says it's storefronts. Is this just street level storefronts, or are these businesses at any level in a building?
Right now, it's for nonprofits and small businesses that contain 25 or less full-time people, employees, but we have asked that be expanded. So the definition is small businesses with 25 or less full-time employees. We've asked that it be bigger. So I don't see anything that says just storefronts, although it says save our storefronts. It's referring to small businesses in that way.
So it's not exclusive to just restaurants and retail?
No.
Okay.
It includes also nonprofits.
Well, but there are businesses that aren't restaurants or retails that are small businesses that also aren't.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Todd?
Yeah, have we gotten up the comments yet?
No, we're still on questions.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay. James Dale.
Yes. Is there any distinction made between the types of landlords? I think sometimes there are very small landlords, not everybody's a Blackstone or related, where these small buildings with storefront tenants are still being impacted by large expenses like local law 11 and things like that. So I'm concerned that the impact might be felt by very small landlords as well. So is there any distinction between the types of landlords?
Right. So the committee was concerned about that. We do believe that landlords shouldn't be enriched by this. The fund should not be to enrich those larger landlords who don't need it. Having said that, it hasn't specifically spoken to the smaller landlord. It's looking for a way to sort of spread the pain, split the baby between these, the government, the landlord, and the small business. So there's not a provision. There really hasn't been a conversation about the smaller landlord. But we did recommend that the bill, as it is iterated, that it looks at and doesn't enrich, that it just is given to those landlords that actually need it.
Okay, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think my question was a little bit different, more that I think there's some very small landlords, for example, a condo or a co-op with just a couple of units, and the impact might be disproportionately felt by those kind of smaller landlords.
Right. And again, the resolution, in our resolution, we do call for landlords to be involved in the conversation as the bill is iterated.
Thank you.
Okay. Layla?
Renee, is there currently any mechanism for federal funds to be funneled to help small businesses with rent relief?
Not right now, but this bill would do that if we get it. And it depends on if, in fact, we do get that relief, which.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we go to comments? All right, seeing none, we're in comments. Todd?
Yeah, so again, as everybody knows, I'm the typical small businessman, and this kind of creative, pragmatic effort is exactly what's needed. And I totally support this. The only thing I would say is the periods of time that's going to be needed by the small business and for a law of this type is probably going to be more than just 100 days past the expiration of the emergency. And then the other thing I would say is, as a community board, we're reflecting the grassroots. This is all for naught unless the federal government is going to deliver on enough money to make this practical. And again, I just want to say that, for example, my landlord has been very reasonable, and many landlords in the city have been reasonable in just negotiating on an ad hoc case-by-case basis to allow small businesses to survive. But a lot of them haven't. And the sooner something like this happens, the better off we as a neighborhood are going to be. So to my way of thinking, there's nothing that's more important than this. And again, those of us who have influence in the real estate community, I can just imagine that a lot of the landlords, knowing some of them as I do, are not going to look favorably upon this. But really, we've got to use whatever influence we have to get the landlords and the commercial real estate industry to participate in something like this. And if they're not happy with this law, then they have to bargain in good faith on it. But full speed ahead, and I applaud the BEX committee. Let's do what we can and use what influence we have to get this out there as soon as possible.
Okay, next comment, Matt?
This is just a clarification based on Todd's comments. This is opt-in, right? It's similar to PPP, where they were. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, any comments? Other comments? Seeing none. Joel, is your hand still?
Yeah, I just want to know, what does that mean? What Matthew just asked about opt-in?
Opt-in. So the small business can opt in. If you have a perfectly agreeable situation with your landlord and you've worked out something with your landlord, then you may not refer to this. You may not opt into this. You can just continue as is.
Sorry, just to be clear, is that true of the landlord side also, or is that only true of the small business side?
It's the small businesses that would opt into that.
So if the small business opts in, the landlord has, according to this law, the landlord has to reduce the rent by that amount.
The current iteration is yes, this is opt-in for the small business. However, we've asked that as this bill iterates, and we recognize that this is just a framework, it's a working model, we've asked that landlords be brought to the table so that their views are also reflected in this bill.
Okay.
Okay. Any comments? Any other comments? Seeing none, we are now going to vote on these two resolutions, and then we have an update after the two resolutions vote.
Ready? Kalis.
Yes.
Athanale.
Yes.
Behar.
Yes.
Eichmann.
Yes.
Brosnahan.
Yes.
Burton.
Yes.
Dale.
Yes.
Dosen.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Frewer.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Goldman. Yes. Gashow.
Yes.
Haas.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Heyer.
Yes.
Isaacs. Isaacs. Johnson.
Yes.
Kabak.
Yes.
Kang.
Yes.
Kinsella.
Yes.
Lagasico.
Yes.
Kalifarsky.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Lusick.
Yes.
McCall.
Yes.
Meyerson.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Pawson.
Yes.
Raybar.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Slutskin, yes. Smith.
Yes.
Spandorf.
Yes.
Spence.
Yes.
Stern.
Yes.
Sung.
Yes.
Schinkel.
Abstain.
Weintraub.
Yes.
Whalen.
Yes.
Yang.
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Okay, both resolutions pass, and we have an update from Renee as well.
Sure. Vicki, I will just mention that the committee also heard about the Clear Path Forward Act, which is another Senate bill regarding lawsuits from commercial renters and settling the question of whether COVID-19 was something that the renter could or could not have foreseen or guarded against in a commercial lease. We didn't take any action on that, but we heard about that Senate bill that's kind of pending. I will say the committee was a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of legislators stepping into the shoes of the court, so we just learned about that bill. I have a report on the homeless hotels. We've had increasing complaints regarding the street situation in the West 50s and the West 30s. There are about 4 hotels at present. We have more than that in our district, but 4 at present that are hosting homeless clients that are creating some street situations that are difficult. And what we're trying to do is have the providers at those hotels to meet with us, along with our electeds and our other stakeholders and the community members, to see if there's some way of coordinating services in the areas to alleviate some of the issues that we've seen. We've been directing community members on where and how to direct their complaints, to take photographs, to call 311. We know that the board's power in this regard is somewhat limited because we have this advisory role, but we're really pushing to try and get the issues that community members have brought up to us. I'm happy to say the Borough President's Office recently has agreed to help us arrange meetings with providers, DHS, and the stakeholders. And we're gonna try and coordinate some of the same response to the issues that other boards have seen, so we can coordinate these meetings. So we hope to have those coming online soon. And then I just want to say, as Clayton explained, the role of the Director of the Public Realm is a really important role. And it's going to be part of the budget requests that we will be presenting next month. And one of the major inclusions will be the funding of a position of Director of the Public Realm. It's really critically important in planning for and maintaining a coordinated plan for the use of all the resources in our neighborhoods. Every other city has this, Paris, Los Angeles, Boston, and we really fragment this position to our detriment. And so there's a real opportunity here to advocate for a way to manage our open spaces and have this top level coordination. So any of the committees or any individuals who have comments about this that can be shared with Bex, that would be great. We could include it in the budget consideration commentary.
Okay, thank you so much, Renee. Craig, did you see the note from Rob? He had trouble and he voted.
I did.
Okay, good.
He's recorded.
Okay, good. Okay, that actually concludes our agenda for the evening. A motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Okay, and seconded, and we are now adjourned. I wish you all well. Stay safe.
Bye all.
And good night.
All right, good night.
Thank you.